Welcome back, everyone. Here we are with another Paladin video. A little bit more updated tanking video for AoE mostly. I think I found the best I could possibly use. It's going to be a little bit long of a video. It's going to be broken down into chapters. There's going to be separate chapters for each thing we're going to talk about. Talents, runes, a rotation or lack thereof, some best in slot or pre-best in slot. Mostly pre-bis. We're not going to talk about Nomer stuff, because things get a little different when we head into raids. This is dungeon clearing, dungeon farming, gold farming, selling dungeon runs, mass AoE pooling. You need good DPS. There's some little clip here in the background. This isn't the best DPS to AoE farm with. You want mages, you want warlocks, you want maybe even a hunter. Probably not even that, you just mages. Paladin, a priest, and 3 mages, and that's your best comp. Anyway, so I guess we'll just jump right into the tanking portion and AoE and why to actually be an AoE Paladin. I guess the biggest reason I do is just being able to clear things quickly. I came from retail into Season of Discovery, and I played a Protection Paladin in retail, and I did Mythic Pluses. So to me, it feels like home. I'm pulling as much as I can. I'm letting the DPS do DPS. The biggest reason why to do it is just to clear as quickly as possible. It's a lot of fun. You get to know your character a lot better. You get more gold per hour. You know, it can be a random drop. And you meet some people along the way that can stick with you along the way. And that's kind of all that matters in an MMO, right? Is meeting people. So who does it really benefit though with AoE tanking is kind of a question that gets asked. Like, why go through this trouble to AoE tank in dungeons that you might not even get anything out of unless you're selling the service, which is your main goal, is to sell the service. People are going to be leveling alts. People are going to be leveling other characters. The end game, there's only so much you can do. And once people get through that, which is kind of starting, people are going to start on alts, and they're going to want carries. And I'm not telling you to try to solo carry, but I am telling you to maybe ask for a little tip, or even run your guilds, or just do an LFG selling service. Tank, selling service, a couple gold, depending on the dungeon. I mean, it's up to you. It benefits the group as a whole as well, because your DPS has something to do and they have a lot of fun. DPS has more fun when there's more than 3 mobs you're pulling at a time. Like in the background footage right now, this is an extremely small pool. Your group will move very, very slow, and your healer will probably not have anything to do. Alright, so let's talk about the talents, what talents I use for this build, and why I use these talents. This is your basic 11, 13, 7. 11 in a holy, we want divine strength. For this tree, you can take the intellect if you want the intellect instead of the seal of righteous. I run this for boss fights, just to have it. I don't really have an intellect problem. If you have an intellect problem, you can obviously take that. Now, consecration, obviously you need it. We'll go into detail about this later, and how to use it, when to use it, where to use it, who to use it on. Into protection, redoubt, it only affects after a critical strike has landed on you, but we're not using devotion aura, so might as well take that. Obviously you want hit, you want to be able to hit things. Guardian's favor, improved blessing of freedom is really the big reason you're taking this. Just for some of the casters, frostbolt, slows, whatever. It'll increase the duration. And improve righteous fury, that's all you want in this tree. You can leave 1 point out of this if you don't have a threat problem, and we'll talk about that, why you want to leave that 1 point out. But I always just stack the 3, because you never know what could happen. You could get a pumping mage that just knows what button to hit. Retribution, blessing of might. We're stacking attack power, that is what we want. Seal of the Crusader, 2 points. You can take the 1 point you saved here and put it there. For an extra 15% attack power bonus. Or you can just get the 10%. This is what I do right now. I will probably change it later because I do like attack power. This is all you want. This is mostly for the AoE build. This is not viable as a main tank in a raid. This is not a raid guide, but this is your AoE build. I really wouldn't switch too many things other than the intellect if you need it. But I do like having the Seal of Righteous just for boss fights when we can equip the two-hander while our Avenger Shield's on cooldown. Or you can take the intellect. It's okay, whichever one you want. I mean, you're gonna get more crit for some of your abilities, but the Consecration and Divine Storm doesn't crit yet, so it's kind of, you know, it's up in the air about that. About what I'm gonna do there. We might take it later. There is a rune later. Anyway, we'll talk about that when the rune comes out. Speaking of runes, our runes are pretty basic, simple. I wouldn't change any of these. This is AoE, Divine Storm, Avenger Shield, Guarded by the Light, Hand of Reckoning, Sheath of Light. You're building Sheath of Light for Avenger Shield and for really your Consecration ticks. That's pretty much what you're doing. You're AoE pooling, getting Consecration down, and watching the ticks. Avenger Shield will benefit from spell power and attack power, so that's kind of good to use Avenger Shield, especially for AoE pools because it hits 3 targets. And we'll talk about how I use Avenger Shield in a rotation. Your options here, there really isn't. I mean, Seal of Martyrdom is great for single target. Lord of Lordaeron does not stack with Blessing of Might, and its total strength and agility attack power bonus is less than Blessing of Might. So it's kind of, I don't even understand. It needs to be reworked. It's really bad. And you would have to kind of have 3 Paladins to benefit from it. But even then, it's going to overwrite their Blessing of Might. So really, it's, I don't understand this purpose of this yet. Maybe I'm missing something. If you know in the comments, leave something of why this should be used. Other than maybe a crit bonus. I just don't see it. Divine Storm, obviously. AoE. Aegis, pointless right now. Maybe if you're raid tanking as a main tank, full protection, maybe. But right now, Divine Storm's the way to go. It's always going to be. There is a rune in the future that is going to let this crit, I believe. Let us get critical strikes from Divine Storm. Hands, you only have one choice. If you're not main tanking, if you're off tanking, or just doing damage, Crusader Strike, tanking, obviously Hand of Reckoning. You always want to keep this up. The Righteous Fury bonus, and the mana when you're healed is just too good to pass up. I mean, you just need it anyway to tank, and it gives you a taunt. But you're going to need a taunt every now and then. Waste, you have really no other option. Sheath of Light. This is the whole build. You're building up attack power to increase your spell power. It's kind of the same with the Holy Shock build, but with that you're just going to use Infusion. And that's just a completely different build. Legs, this is where a lot of people get kind of debatable on it. Exorcist or Avenger Shield. I'm going to go Avenger Shield. I will always go Avenger Shield when I'm AoE pooling. Few reasons. It benefits spell power and attack power. It hits 3 targets for a considerable amount of damage. especially if you have a nice sheath going and a ton of attack power. If you have like in a sheath around like 250 to 280, you can get up to 600 with an Avenger Shield on 3 targets. Exorcist is what a lot of people are gonna also want to use. Yes, you can use this if you are not if you are main tanking, off tanking, or single target raiding. PvP possibly. I think Avenger Shield is better in PvP. Mages, druids, things that like to run, Avenger Shield kind of puts a hold on that. Except for druids. Druids always get away. They just change back into a squirrel or whatever. I don't know. So I would avoid Exorcist unless you're single targeting. Because this you can kind of build into a different build that will benefit Exorcist more. Just go Avenger Shield. It's part of the rotation. You'll see why later. Guarded by the Light. Obviously. Guarded by the Light. Same thing with Art of War and the previous statement about Avenger or Exorcism. You can, if you're going to use Exorcism, you're going to use Art of War. You're going to use Avenger Shield, you can use Guarded by the Light or Sacred Shield, but that's kind of, I would avoid that. If you wanted to use a single target build for this, say this is your current build and you run dungeons regularly and you AoE farm a lot, but you were invited to a raid to off tank or main tank, you will change these runes. You will put on Seal of Martyrdom, and you will put on Exorcist, and you will put on Art of War. You can keep Sheath of Light just for this bonus spell damage to Exorcism, and you will probably put on Crusader Strike. Hand of Reckoning, I personally wouldn't use if you're just going to off tank or do a raid as like a backup tank or whatever. If you're main tanking, yes, but use Crusader Strike if not, because you can always flip on Righteous Fury to try to generate threat. And if that's not good enough for your guild, if your group is building too much damage and they're pulling too much threat from you, then you're going to have to switch to Hand of Reckoning. That's just situational. You figure that out as you go. A lot of this stuff is situational, except for this. This is just, you do it. You know, you do this build and you have a good time. And that pretty much wraps up our talents and our runes for AoE. If you have any questions about these or any suggestions that you might do something a little bit different, leave it in the comments, you know, stuff like that, and then we'll always talk about it. And here we are at rotations. I get questions sometimes about a rotation. If I use a rotation, what kind of rotation do I use? How, you know, this and that. This little clip here is a prime example of what I kind of do. That little section you just saw of how I pull. There's a process to how I pull. And I always pull very, very small at the beginning of a dungeon. I only pull 3 to 4 mobs. I know I pulled them all here, but I kind of knew what I was working with. You want to pull a little small to see your DPS. You want a DPS check. You want to see what your guys can perform. Can your guys do 200 DPS? Can they do 400? Are they only going to be able to do 100? You need to know kind of these numbers to do the math mentally that, okay, well, if I pull 8 mobs, my healer is going to run out of mana and I am going to die before my DPS kills these mobs. But if I pull 6 mobs, we should be okay. And that's kind of what you have to do in the very beginning. Like here, I'm just watching everyone's DPS. I'm seeing someone's missing. I am out DPSing here. And so in my mind, I know I can't pull more than a certain amount of mobs, or we're going to have a problem. But we do pull more mobs later, and we'll talk about that clip too. So basically, a rotation for me is I'm always going to pull a few first. Very, very few first. 3 to 4, see how it goes, and then I can adjust from there. I will always either make a decision when I see a mob or an area. Like here in Cathedral, you have these corners. I know I can face pull this mob right here. I know I can face pull that mob. I know I can face pull the mob that's over here. But there's some mobs down here at the corner. Now, there's two options. Any other classes, let's say a warrior would just charge down there. A druid might fairy fire or moonfire and pull them and get back into bear form. Because you always want to pull them to this line of sight here in the corner. Especially the beginning, the openings of this area, basically. You can run in and pull this whole side if you have enough DPS. I did not have enough DPS, so I could not do that. You have to make the option to, if you're going to face pull back to here, run the risk of getting dazed. You can pull from range with Avenger Shield, which if you see, I always wait for my Avenger Shield to come off of cooldown before I go to my next pull. I have 2 seconds left on my Avenger Shield. I kind of peaked 2 seconds too early, but I want to face pull this guy over here behind this column too. So my opener is always going to be an Avenger Shield if they're ranged like that, or a face pull if they're closer, into a Divine Storm. Once they come around this corner, I always try to consecrate a choke point, and I tried not to spam consecration. Have a counter. You can get a counter from a weak aura. It's very straightforward, very simple. I can show you that near the end of the video. As for any other rotations, once you get them grouped, you can Divine Storm on cooldown, consecrate when necessary. If you're below a certain amount of mana, I would not consecrate. If there is a pack greater than 2, you can Avenger Shield. If you can Exorcism, Exorcism is always going to take priority. If you can Exorcism the mob, just because it's an instant cast, it's got really long range, and it's got a fairly short cooldown, and it's an easy snap threat on a mob. It leaves you other abilities to use. If you can Exorcism, always Exorcism. That's only demons and undead, unless you're running the Rune, which don't run the Rune because you're going to run Avenger Shield. So these are basic pools. A lot of these pools are phase pools and use of all of my abilities. This is a fairly small pool. I knew the DPS was kind of back there, and that's why I turned my camera to see how far along they were, if I could pull the next group, which is probably what I do here. It's usually something I would, I just go straight to the next group once my DPS catches up. Now for casters, you can line of sight anything. I would always line of sight. Line of sight tanking is the best tanking you can do. You control everything about the situation when you line of sight. Very important. Don't let a caster stand at range and just blast you with Frostbolt. Just try to hide behind something to make him come over. These pillars here work great, or these columns. Now your second pack, your first pack, you're going to decide if you're going to face pool. Most first packs you can face pool. Just get within the aggro range. You don't want to run into them because you'll have a high chance of being dazed, which will ruin your entire pool. Because you're going to have to slow down, and your DPS will catch up and automatically start building threat. It's painful. Try to face pool if you can. If not, use it just a simple judgment. I always do a judgment back into a Seal of the Righteous. Seal of the Crusader. Seal of the Crusader is something you're going to keep up all the time. You will not drop Seal of the Crusader. It's going to stay on you. I would suggest every now and then resetting your sheath. What I mean by resetting is just right clicking. Make sure you have your Blessing of Might and your Seal of the Crusader at the same time, and then you can reset your sheath. See, like here's a daze, and this kind of messes up my pool here because I wanted to get all these guys at one time at this column, but I could not. And it's really not that many either, so it kind of works out. Another situation with pooling is once you establish your first pack and you get aggro on them, you can hit 1 or 2 with a judgment, or 1 with a judgment, and you can melee another and melee the other if you have to, which is usually not necessary. I mean, you could Divine Storm while running, but then that puts it on a cooldown, and you're going to need it for your third pack. Your second pack, you're always going to Avenger Shield, just because they're going to be further away than your first pack. You can Avenger Shield them from range. You'll snap threat all 3 of them, 3 targets. If there's a fourth, that's good, because they'll probably be targeting you as well, and you can keep an eye on them. Once you get 7 to 12 mobs, depending on your DPS, I usually try to stop there. My DPS is really high. I'll pick up 12, or as many as I possibly can, basically. Like in this situation where I just kept going, I pick up as many, and I park my back towards those mobs. That way, if we aggro them, I see them run past my camera, and it's easier to spot. Like you'll see one run up, and it's easier to see that when you put your back towards them, and I can see myself getting hit in the back with the frostbolt. So I use this column here to get that guy over. And this is a pretty average pool. Any kind of AoE DPS would have taken care of this pretty quickly, and we could have moved on. Having melee, I don't really suggest having too much melee. Maybe a Retribution Paladin or a Warrior for cleave. But if you can get casters, take casters. So once you've established a pool order, like you're going to face pool these, or you're going to Avengers shield those, and you're going to Judgment this one, just try to lay a concentration down in a choke point. If you're running to a corner, if you're using a line of sight, if you're, whatever you're doing, just get a concentration down there. En route to where you're going. That way the mobs have to run through it, which also helps your threat. It's just, you know, the little things. The little threat generators is all you're really working on. Because once you do little threat generators and you do enough of them, you've got a lot of threat. Make an assessment at the beginning of the dungeon of your DPS by pooling small. 4 to 5 mobs, see how it goes. Keep an eye on your DPS. If they're high, you know what to do. If they're low, you know what to do. You don't want to find out you have low DPS after you pooled 10 mobs. That's the worst time to find out. So you want to find out in the very beginning, and it's quite simple, just pool. Then you're going to Avenger Shield a second pack, face pool a first, Avenger Shield a second. If you have to Avenger Shield a first because of range and line of sight corners, then Avenger Shield. Try to Judgment another mob close by, or face pool another mob close by, because Avenger Shield does slow the mobs. So if you see these mobs are slowed, I had time to run over and face pool those mobs. And once you do that, you're just going to concentrate, do your Divine Storm on cooldown, keep up your Seal of the Crusader all the time. The best way to handle the boss or a boss of the dungeon is to get an Avenger Shield and get that on cooldown. Switch over to a two-handed weapon, preferably Morgaine's Might, or the PvP weapon if you have it. Establish Seal of the Crusader and Judgment that on the target. Switch to the Seal of the Righteous and just blast with your two-handed weapon. When Avenger Shield comes off cooldown, switch back over to your shield. The boss usually never lasts that long for Avenger Shield to come off of cooldown. And just blast with your two-hander. There's really no reason not to. You're just kind of hanging out anyway at that point. If you want to stay in your sword and your shield, you can do that as well. Free best in slot for our AoE build. This is pretty much what you're going to have most of your time as an AoE tank. Once you get into Nomer as an off tank or a DPS, you can start working on your BIS. But the best things you can get currently AoE tanking are actually pretty good items. You're going to want the helm either from RFD, Razorfane Downs, or you're going to want the helm from Scarlet Monastery. Now, there's a quest in Razorfane Downs that awards you the Vanquisher Sword, so I would suggest when you're doing that quest, try to get the helm as well. Necklace, you're going to go for the PvP necklace, easily obtainable, especially in the current state of the game. Shoulders, you're going to get the shoulders from Scarlet Monastery. Armory, fairly easy to get. High drop rate, they drop pretty often. Cloak, this is the PvP cloak. There is a better cloak that you can use for damage. Probably the Sergeant's Cloak. This is more for stamina. It's the only reason I have it. High armor, high stamina. I do like this cloak too, it looks cool. For your chest piece, I have the Scarlet chest piece. It is a good chest piece. The chest piece from Razorfang Downs is better. It is what you want. I need to run RFD a lot. That's going to happen today. I'm short a chest piece. I'm short a couple items from RFD, to be honest. But you're going to want this chest piece. It drops from Razorfang Downs. It is off the first boss, the spider boss. It has a fairly, it says 32%, but I've ran it many times and I've always seen the cape. I have never seen anything else other than the cape. I've seen the gloves once, and I've seen the cape probably 5 times. For your bracers, the Ultimate bracers that Arona drops of the bear will probably be your best that you can get from there. I have of the monkey. It's just what I got. It happens, you know. I got them, so I took them. Same thing with the gloves. The gloves from Scarlet Monastery, I personally feel are better than the gloves from Razorfang Down or from Ultimate. The bracers from Ultimate and the gloves are from Ultimate. I think the gloves from Cathedral are better. The Gauntlets of Divinity, they give you a base 32 attack power, which is 16 strength. As for belt, I have the basic of power belt. There are good belts out there. Specifically, Razorfang Downs has a belt off of Ragglesnout, which is going to be a little bit better because it's going to give you 30 attack power instead of 22. That will be your previous. As for pants, Scarlet leggings if you can get them. There is nothing better right now. That gives you 40 attack power. As for your boots, you're going to want to farm your Ravelosh boots from Ultimate. 12 strength equates 24 attack power. It's pretty good. I have some basic boots that I need replaced. Don't worry about these. Rings PvP, obviously. My main hand is Vaporwitcher Sword, which is completed from quest. Gives a base 28 attack power, which is beautiful. And my shield is Aegis of the Starlight Commander, obviously. I have nothing else, and I don't know if I'll do the blacksmithing one yet. So we're going to talk about add-ons, what add-ons I use. I get a few questions about add-ons, specifically my unit frames. This is Luna. Once you install it, you type /Luna. And it brings up options for everything. I did have a problem not hiding my party frames while I'm in a raid. I didn't like that. I wish I could do that. But you can lock and unlock. My stuff's all over the place just because that's how I am. You can move your party over here. You can make your party, instead of ascending vertically, you can ascend them horizontally. If you want to move them to where they're laying down and you want to put them here, you can do that. If you want to keep them off to the side, you can do that. There's a ton of settings you can do. Luna is really good. I like Luna compared to shadowed unit frames. I don't know why. I just like the look of it, I think. Pally Power, you can download this from CurseForge. You can download it. Hey, it's not that big of a deal. Pally Power. Very cool. You can right click. If you have other people in your group that have Pally Power, it'll show up here and you guys can assign each other what you want to do. You can do it this way, or you can actually go. I'm just changing about mouse scroll wheel. That's all I'm doing. If you don't want to open up that menu, you can come into the menu itself and mouse over a player and mouse wheel, and it'll change that individual player. Or you can mouse wheel this and it'll change whatever it is here. Same thing with the auras. I cannot get this to go away for some reason. That's in the settings. You can come in and go into options and you can hide other buttons. Like seal button, you can hide it. You can enable or disable Righteous Fury if you want it up or not. And that gives you the option to just right click. If you see it's red, you can right click and re-enable it. Very cool thing, especially in raiding and groups and stuff. My map is just Sexy Map with some changes. Nothing crazy. I did change the appearance to be a square, and I hid some buttons. I do have a bartender for my bars. Obviously, we have details. I usually keep it on dynamic overall damage instead of DPS. I don't know. My chat, you can't see. Bartender over here. Bartender, a threat meter. You can keep it under your character, so you can see if anyone's building threat. For some of the more background add-ons, I do use bag on instead of Addy Bags. I do think Addy Bags has a better interface, but the problem I have with Addy Bags is I can't see my bank. I want to see my bank sometimes, and I want to see my bank of other characters as well sometimes. And that gives you the option to do that. Any background add-ons that you don't really see are obviously going to be Deadly Boss mods. You have to have this. Just have it. Just have it. Ashenvale Progress macro, that will just announce in your guild if you the timer on Ashenvale. Like there's 5 minutes left on Stranglethorn, it'll announce like 50 minutes before, and you can change it to where it doesn't do that. And if someone else in your guild already does it, it won't do it itself. Atlas, because you need Atlas to look at the loot. Auto layer is a pretty cool feature that will be able to bounce layers. You can hop around on layers. It helps if you're questing or trying to find a rare, or you just want to get off the layer you're on. You can use auto layer. That's pretty straightforward. You right click on it. You enable it by clicking. If it's green, it's enabled. Now when it's enabled, you're gonna invite random people to your group automatically. Just if you don't like that, then turn it off. If you're out questing and it's not a big deal, then don't worry about it. It's just gonna invite people randomly. If you type in the chat LF layer or looking for a layer, you're gonna get an auto invite from that add-on. And then you can just leave the group once you get to the layer you want. Let's say you're on layer 7, you want to get to layer 2, or vice versa. You can do that. More Atlas loot, which, let's see, Atlas loot, auto layer, bartender, yeah. Buff timers is this up here. It breaks it down into minutes, so when you look up there and you have any of your boons or whatever, it doesn't just say 2 hours, even though there's only like an hour left. It'll actually give you a time. It'll say in minutes how many minutes you have. Character stats classic, very, very important. This will enable you to look at your this. You can come in here and change to range, a spell, base stats. You can change these over here as well. And there's also extended character stats, which is this. You can go into the settings here, change what you want visible. If you want your range stats visible, if you want your melee hidden, if you want, you know, just whatever, mana stats, anything you want, you can put it in these stats. I think there's some better ones out there than this that have more visibility on these details, but I think if you're going into the numbers that deep, you might be playing the wrong game. And then we have details. Details is pretty self-explanatory. I do have some dungeon helper stuff that I have disabled. I haven't used it. Extended character sets. We talked about fishing buddy is just a fishing add-on. Gear score classic. You just use it. Don't use it as a tool to allow or deny people into dungeons, but just use it as an overview of someone you're looking at. Like if you invite someone to your group and you see their gear score is like 78 and they're level 40, then you know you have a problem. But if you invite someone to your group and your gear score is like 470 and theirs is like 370, you know it's going to be okay. Just use it, but don't abuse it, basically. Don't be like, you must have a gear score of 7,000 to join my library group. Like, don't be that guy. Nobody likes that guy. Except for that guy. Only that guy likes that guy. Handy notes, that's just for professions, that's all. Leatrix, everyone knows about it. LFG bulletin board is this handy dandy tool here that I cannot live without because you can separate it by dungeon. You can, as you can tell, my chat. This is my chat. It's just my guild. This is a normal person's chat. Spam. You know, I actually ignored a ton of these want to sell stuff. This will allow you to hide a lot of channels in the game to where you can just have your chat nice and quiet, but you can come here, and if you want to run library, you can come here and be like, all right, well, here's a group that needs a healer, or here's some AoE stuff. Yeah, bulletin board, get it, it's good. Loot reserve, Luna. There's Luna I was talking about, mini map buttons that moves the buttons to this little icon here, so they're not all around your map. You just click on this icon and you can select which add-on you want to see. Pawn, get rid of it, it's fucking terrible, don't use it. Destroy it, delete it off your system if you have Pawn. Plater is a good plate, unit frame, threat plate, but I think threat plates classic is better. Ranker is just for PvP. It shows you when you can rank up and how much longer. Rare scanner, everyone knows what that is. RC loot counts we don't have to worry about. Reputation guide is just the add-on to help you with your reputation. You can come over and it'll show you honor to revered, how it kind of breaks everyone down, shows you who's neutral. You can click on them and it will tell you, okay, you need 71 concerted efforts to get to another rank, or you need 141 a fight for Warsong Gulch. And it'll show you your reputation missing, if you have any reputation in your bags, banks, or in quest. It's a pretty cool little add-on. It'll track your counter for your session. It's pretty neat. It's a pretty neat add-on. It's just numbers, that's all. Logout skips is okay. I personally, I don't like it. It clutters your map too much, but it works. Thanks for the buff. It's just, it thanks people when they buff you. That's all. It's just stupid. I like it though. It tells everybody thank you. Threat plates, that's the big one. You want it. It's great. Don't go without it. Don't leave home without it. Threat plates. Can't stress it enough. It's the best plates out there. Threat plates. Threat Classic 2, that's this little thing, this little guy here. Vendor price, don't worry about that. You don't really need it. Weak auras. This is kind of its own thing. You need weak auras. And we'll discuss weak auras now, actually, since we're done really with add-ons. With weak auras, you're going to type /WA like that. You're going to hit enter. Now what it's going to do is it's going to bring up this panel right here that has all my weak auras. Obviously we don't need the room. We're just going to delete that out of here. Now for these, you can go to the website weak auras. I just type in weak auras and it's going to bring this up. Wago. Yes, once you get here, you go to classic. You click on that. You can select any class, any dungeon, raid, whatever. Crafting, warrior, shaman. We're going for paladin, protection. And then you're going to have all these different options. I do not like these clutters. I think they serve an unnecessary purpose. I don't, I know something is on cooldown because I can see it. That it's, or I just realize I just use it. Once you type in consecration, you'll get the option to import. It'll say copy import string. You'll click here on import and you'll paste it here. It'll import it. It'll bring it up on your screen like so. You can move it wherever you want. Make it really, really big. You can make it really, really small. You can put it anywhere. I leave it right there. But anyway, if you made it this far, I really appreciate it. This is probably the last AoE video I will make for Paladin until Phase 3. A lot of changes are going to happen in Phase 3. There will be some other guides for different builds, like Holy Shock and Retribution, because we'll move into Retribution later in the phase. They did get a little buff the other day, so but when that time comes, we'll be here. But yeah, if you made it this far, really thank you. Make sure you like and sub and all that stuff. You know, I usually don't say that, but a little like goes a long way. Leave in the comments if you have any questions. And if you need to rewind it, I'll have it broken down into chapters, I hope. I should have it broken down into chapters. And that's pretty much it. See you in the next one.